Right there. Look at that right there. Look at that head shake, man. Oh, man. That's what we came up here for.
Okay, live in 3, 2, 1.
This episode is brought to you by Smooth Moves, boat seat suspensions for a smoother ride. A family-owned and operated company right here in Minnesota. So check them out at smoothmoveseats.com. All right, well, yeah, let's kick this thing off. And I would recommend people listening to this or watching this, you might want to get a cup of coffee, something to keep you awake, because we are going to dive into some of the really specific points of how funding and natural resource management works here in the state of Minnesota with our guest today, Mark Holsten. Mark, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for those of you or those who don't know, can you give us some of your background? You've got a really unique perspective to share here.
You know, I've spent most of my adult life in the natural resource conservation arena in one facet or another. I got elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives when I was 27 years old. Spent 10 years at the legislature, where during that time, for a while anyway, I chaired the Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee. So I was responsible for, in the House, putting together the budgets for DNR, PCA, all the Board of Soil and Water. So I got indoctrinated into the natural resources world, the environmental financing, and with that comes a lot of policy. So I spent 10 years around the legislature doing that. And then I ended up, when Governor Plenty got elected, asked to go in and serve as deputy commissioner and then eventually commissioner of the DNR. So I spent 8 years at the DNR leading that organization. And getting involved in a lot of different things going on inside the natural resource conservation world, but very specifically through the DNR. And now recently, I was hired by the MinFish Sport Fishing Foundation and Coalition as their executive director a couple of years ago, and so I've been heading up that organization. In between there, I served on the Lessard-Sams Commission, which reviews and oversees the outdoor legacy dollars, our constitutional amendment that through our sales tax funds natural resources conservation work. So I sat on that council board for 5-6 years and worked with a whole bunch of other people and trying to review projects and make allocations and make recommendations to the legislature on it's approximately, I think this year it's about $150 million a year going into natural resources conservation work.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun doing that, diving into the weeds. You're going to find, I like to get into the weeds.
That's good.
The problem is words matter, details matter, and, for most people who live inside the private world of society, government is a whole different language.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it's a whole different vocabulary, and it takes a long time to sort things out. And so, yeah, I end up I try to over-explain things, trying to simplify things. So sometimes I'll get down into the weeds for you.
Well, you do a great job of that, and thank you for all of that public service. I mean, that is a long career in a lot of places serving the state of Minnesota. What's been your motivation for such a career path?
For most people in their life, it's when opportunities come your way, and if you have an interest, you follow it. And I can't say there was a plan. It was just passion and love of being outdoors, hunting and fishing and just being outdoors in general, whether it was camping or whatever. I mean, and then you find yourself into situations where, like, I get elected to be in the legislature, and, that when you first go into the legislature, it's kind of like freshman year in college.
Oh, it's got to be.
What classes are you going to take? And you don't have a lot of control because decisions are kind of made for you on what committees you're going to sit on. And, thankfully I eventually sat on the Environment Committee, and I'm like, wow, this is fun. I love these topics. And so you start diving into those topics, and you just start down that path. And life takes you down directions, and life is a lot about timing and interests and taking advantage. So I can't say there was a plan. There wasn't.
Well, I think I think what you do, having that perspective, and the role that you play within MinFish, trying to communicate a lot of the issues that Minnesotans face when it comes to fisheries management in particular is really unique and very much valuable. And I should also point out that, Mark, as you mentioned, you're a hunter and an angler, and you've got a sweet little spot on Lake Vermilion. So,
yeah, you haven't been there yet, but I'll say it's sweet.
Anywhere on Lake Vermilion is a sweet
true.
spot.
Yeah. No, that is true. That is true. No, my wife and I bought a island lot many years ago, and slowly have been building a cabin on it. And so, yeah, the adventures of island living.
Yeah, getting everything to and from.
Well, that's you learn operational management real quick on
There you go.
on what materials you need out there on any given weekend, and if you run out of screws or nails, it's like, all right, that day's shot.
Yes.
So you
Yes. Yeah. So, one of the things that I really want to dive into is, I don't even know how to approach this. We talked about this earlier, but it's how really the funding mechanism works for fisheries here in the state of Minnesota, because it's complicated, I guess is a way to put it. And if you can just kind of give
Sure.
us this 10,000-foot view.
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple. The Fisheries division inside the DNR relies largely, the vast majority of their budget comes from license fees. So when you go buy your fishing license, those dollars are deposited into the Game and Fish Fund. And that has a set of statutorily rigid sideboards on how those dollars can be spent by the DNR. And so your hunting license, your fishing license get deposited into that fund. And the DNR tries really hard to separate the hunting dollars go to hunting and the fishing goes to fishing. And so it's pretty close. Sometimes there's some overlap, but it's pretty close. The other thing that goes out of the Game and Fish Fund besides fisheries, then enforcement, conservation officers, they'll get probably 25% of your license fees goes to conservation officers for use by them.
Sure.
And and they regulate their time based upon what they're doing in the day. If they're working on fishing related stuff, it's coming from the Game and Fish Fund
Really?
fish side. Oh yeah. If they're working on hunting side, it's coming out of Game and Fish hunting side. If they're working on boating, it's coming out of boat. I mean, if they're doing on the 4th of July doing
Sure.
boat management kind of stuff, boat safety, it's coming out of the water rec account that's in an entirely different fund. So it's the sideboards are rigid and tight. So your license fee dollars are not going into education. They're not going into road building or welfare. It's going into
It's established by law that's what those funds are for.
Right, those are dollars. Then where the next biggest piece I think is probably the federal Pittman-Robertson Wallet-Bro dollars. Pittman-Robertson on the fishing side.
Dingle Johnson.
I'm sorry, Dingle Johnson. Yes.
Boom. That's the only time I'm ever going to get Mark on something. Right.
No, because you know what? I've forgotten more than
I know you have. I'll never know.
Yeah, keeping it all, but again, keeping all these acronyms separated,
Yes.
it's a challenge. But that's when you go and buy, fishing line or a fishing rod or jigs or something like that. There's an excise tax at the wholesale level, so you don't see it on your receipt. That tax has already been built in. That goes to the federal government, and then it comes back as a federal grant back to the DNR, goes right into the Game and Fish Fund. So you bought your jig, you got taxed on it, and that tax now goes to the feds, comes back, and is used by the fisheries for fishing-related activities.
Yeah, and I've always been curious. So these two funding sources from the federal excise tax, we've got Pittman-Robertson,
Yep.
hunting, shooting sports as well. So this includes ammunition, and then DJ. Which one of those funds tends to be bigger?
Well, I think,
Is Pittman quite a bit bigger? I would
with
assume,
all the gun stuff, if you told me the hunting side wasn't
Yeah,
bigger, I
sure.
would call you a liar.
Yeah.
But fishing is so big. I bet it's not that. I bet it's pretty close.
Yeah, I don't know. We're speculating here. Mike, do you know?
I always thought fishing was a little more just because there's more fishermen,
Yeah.
more anglers across the country. It seemed like fishing was a touch
Well,
more
here,
from what I remember,
You
but
know what? I'll tell you right now.
I could be wrong.
Oh my God! It is it has changed dramatically. Pittman Robertson in 2025 is going to be $36 million, and Dingle Johnson is 14.5.
Oh wow, way off.
Yeah,
that's
that's
all.
crazy.
It's all ammunition and.
Yep,
and
that's
guns.
changed a lot then from what I remember talking about it. So
Okay, yeah, because I think back in the day it was pretty close.
Yep.
And
And I know that this has been a sticking point, with DJ funding. So we had Jeff Kolozinski on here. He was an ASA board member, also works for Humminbird, which we do too. But for those who don't know, marine electronics are exempt from that Dingle Johnson tax. So I know there's been a lot of concerns with anglers. Our fisheries chief, Brad Parson, has made a point many times to bring that up in meetings, that one of the things that we're seeing with angler efficacy increasing seems to be very much related to technology usage, and that happens to be something that is not supporting the DJ fund. And that's a federal deal. I get it.
Yeah, no, and that's a federal deal. But at the same time, we've always kind of associated if you create a product, or if there's a product out there that has a disproportional impact, that it should contribute more to the conservation side of it. And so there'll be an argument to bring that in.
Yeah, I think it's been ongoing. I just don't know how much it's gotten for legs. So, all right. So we're moving on past that. Then we also have let's see. So then Minnesota has two other big funding sources, conservation related, and we've got the Environmental Trust Fund, lottery dollars, and then we have the Legacy Amendment, which is a sales tax dedicated towards
Right.
funding.
Yes, and those are two very different funds, but they're managed differently. But they are annual appropriation to from the legislature, and they are people go before there. So it's organizations go in. The agency is eligible to go in and ask for project dollars, and that's what it is. You got to remember that's project dollars. It's not
This is through the trust fund or the Legacy?
through both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Both are project orientated, I should say.
Okay.
Dollars. The sideboards on the trust fund are broader, so you'll get more. You'll get the University of Minnesota doing research.
Okay.
Okay, and they get a time frame. On the legacy side, it's projects. It's habitat. Period. And so that is, buying up shoreland to protect shoreland and doing habitat work. It's acquiring uplands and wetlands and doing projects in that new space. So restoration type work. They're doing a lot of that kind of work on the legacy side.
Which is great because, as we know, protecting all that habitat is becoming more and more important to fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
We need the wild places to have the critters we like.
Right.
Yeah.
And but it's having it. It's acquiring it. Right.
Sure.
But it requires maintenance too.
So how does that work? So if you purchase something from using legacy funds or environmental trust funds, who then oversees, or how does that budget work to maintain that particular piece of property or project?
One of two things is happening. It's either being transferred to the state, and so the DNR will take ownership and enroll it into their WMA or their AMA program or their state forest program.
Okay.
Okay. And then they accept the responsibility of upkeep and maintenance. Some of the nonprofit organizations who come in, like the Nature Conservancy or Ducks Unlimited, they may hold it. I don't know about Ducks Unlimited. Pheasants Forever is doing that, but they're they'll acquire it, they'll manage it, and they may hold it for a period of time, and as their portfolio of management grows. So it's been a developing arena in natural resource conservation in Minnesota, that these organizations are able to do that, which is good. It's an alternative to, you've got Fish and Wildlife Service doing some of this work, DNR doing some of this work, and now some of the nonprofits are stepping into that work. But the land is open to the public.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep,
So
yep.
if a conservation group buys it with these funds, it is accessible.
It's still open
public
to the
land.
public. Yeah.
Yep.
It's considered, it's managed public, although they can put some more sideboards on it to a degree, but
Sure. That's cool. I mean, that's
right.
access for the public. And so is there, okay, so those are our primary funding sources. So now, how are these priorities of, we've got these funds within our state. How does the prioritization process of how to use these funds and where these funds are allocated work?
Well, okay, we got to separate this out.
Okay.
Because, over on the DNR Fisheries management, right? That's your license fees and Dingle Johnson dollars, right?
Okay.
So that's done largely wholly inside the DNR, where they're laying out their budgets of their needs internally, and that gets passed up to the commissioner's office, to the governor's office, and then the governor's budget goes to the legislature, and ultimately it's the legislature who decides how much money the agency is going to get and how much each division is going to get out of those funds to do the work.
Really? So even the license funds are overseen by the...
The legislature allocates those dollars.
So if you buy a fishing license, it is not necessarily going... Well,
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the DNR, yeah, you write your check to the state of Minnesota. You don't write it to Minnesota DNR.
sure.
Okay, it gets deposited into the state game and fish fund that's managed by the DNR, but they don't have access to those dollars. Those dollars, they've got to go into the legislature with a budget, and the legislature has to authorize those dollars to be spent.
Yeah.
So they don't have just generic access to the fund.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You don't think of it that way, right? You think you're buying a fishing license or hunting license, and then the DNR is going to use their expertise to manage the resource accordingly with all the funds that they have available. But there's other layers that, right? Is it a good thing to have those layers of oversight? So DNR is an executive branch too. So maybe we can just step back and kind of look at how it operates from a government.
Yeah. So your government is divided structurally. So you've got your legislative branch, and then you got the governor, the executive branch. And the state agencies are created by the legislature. So the legislature created the DNR and all the functions that the DNR does. But then it's handed over to the executive branch for the day-to-day management. Mm-hmm. So the legislature then authorizes dollars to be spent, hands it over to the legislature, hands it over to the agency for the 2 years, the 2-year budget system. Mm-hmm. So that's the separation.
There we go. Yeah. Shout out to St. Croix Rods for helping make this episode possible. Their slogan is the best rods on earth, and they back it up with their Legend X2. This is simply the crispest, most responsive rod that I've ever handled. So check out St. Croix's new Legend X2. Mike, am I missing anything? Do you have questions on some of this stuff?
No, I think explained very well. It's like, yeah, where does the money go, and how does it go there, and where? That's a complicated situation. So, but
it is I
think we can probably fire up the John Deere now and cut out some of these weeds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes, yeah, exactly. Mow through.
It's not cut and dried, that's for sure.
No, and it's really it's dry.
It's dry.
It's dry.
Yeah.
I just think you making the point that some of the lottery money or the project funded things, a lot of people think those are part of the DNR's budget, and they're not. That's the one thing to make clear, right?
Yeah, and that's been as wonderful as the legacy dollars have been for conservation in Minnesota and the good work that the trust fund has done for projects all across the state, natural resource projects, operationally, the DNR hasn't prospered under that.
Right.
And I don't think the legislature really as all 201 understand that they just see those dollars filtering into the environment and, well, DNR's got enough money. Well, no, that's not actually how it's worked.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, the parks and trails haven't flourished under that.
Okay.
Game and fish, fish and wildlife, and hasn't flourished under that. No.
Yep.
Great work has been done, and they've had their hands on a lot of that work. But again, it's project dollars, not management of our fisheries, management of our deer populations or pheasant populations. That hasn't been
Maintaining trucks, putting gasoline in vehicles.
that hasn't been happening through that.
Yeah,
fund.
the less of it goes to them than you think based on
Yeah.
how things are funded. So, yep.
Yeah, I mean, is this funding mechanism something that we should be concerned about? So I kind of want to be careful about this, but I also want you to respond to this, that it's no surprise that there are plenty of outdoors people who just take the idea of the effing DNR, right? I mean, that's just whatever. They just think it's a complete mess, nightmare. They don't know what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. I mean,
Right.
obviously there are great people there that are specialized in these things, but it's government. It can get messy. It can be out of touch, it seems, at some points in time. So there's plenty of criticisms that are legitimate with this.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, I know you are, very much so, yeah.
What you have to remember is, and step back, agency is a big agency, right? But when you start breaking it down by the bits and pieces, it's all of a sudden not that big. You know, you think fish and wildlife is probably what? Let me ask you, what percentage of the agency do you think is fish and wildlife?
Oh, man, maybe a third?
Yeah, I think I wrote it down at 16%.
Really?
That's it.
16% of the DNR, and so the rest is what? Eco waters, parks, trails, lands,
Enforcement,
minerals?
yeah. Parks and trails, yeah.
Okay,
Forestry.
sure. Forestry is a huge thing in Minnesota. What mining? What do you call that?
Their minerals division, sure. Overseeing the mining and all the work around that. Yeah, and then the administrative part. I mean, overseeing all of that, you've got a big administrative budget too.
Sure. So this would be a question. So as you're sitting in the commissioner's seat, knowing that 16% of the funding is related to fish and wildlife, like how are you then prioritizing fishing and hunting when you're looking
Again,
at the vast majority of these?
Again, you're limited by the funds, by the structure of it's a fee-paying agency. And that's another thing that most people kind of miss, your human service budget it's all general fund and federal funds run through the general fund. Your Department of Education, it's all general fund. I mean, those are the huge drivers of state budget. And then you're sitting there looking at DNR and it's virtually licensed user fees. Virtually all of it. Your parks and trails budget is your registration fees from, your boat registration tags, your snowmobile tags, your ATV tags. That all is going into the Natural Resources Fund and being utilized to, maintain the trails, maintain the public water accesses. That's coming out of that fund. Your park registration is going into it's a park fund in the Natural Resources Fund, but it's for parks, right? And so you kind of get limited by the dollars available to you by the users.
Yeah.
And that's why every once in a while you got to come in and ask for a license fee increase. So, and you got to ask the legislature for that. Well, timing comes into play here because you'll have years where, all right, the legislature is going to do a tax increase. All right, they're going to raise our taxes, whatever they are. And then you come in, well, but we got to raise, it's time for a license fee increase. We're going to have to cut operations, right? And the legislature goes, well, we're raising taxes over here. We don't want to raise that one. Okay?
Yep.
Well, now you're in a situation, it's kind of opposite, where we're cutting budgets. or possibly. I mean, I don't know what the legislature is
Sure.
going to do, but
Well, looking at the
future
financial-
outrate,
yeah.
the future outlook doesn't look good for our state budget, so they're going to have to start cutting budgets, right? And you come in and say, well, it's time for a fee increase. Well, dude, we're cutting over here. Why are we going to raise taxes over here to give? And so raising hunting and fishing fees becomes a real tricky operation. Asking the legislature to do it. Sometimes it takes a while.
Sure. And I think that a lot of people, it really depends on what's happening also in the political climate at the time. And I think there are times when people seem to be very much willing to support that. And it, obviously, anglers, and then there's times where it doesn't. So this would be like a good question. I don't know when this is going to come out, but right now, as we're sitting here talking, we're very near the closing of the public input period for the 4-fish walleye limit. So if, you could definitely take this lens and say that, okay, you're going to, sounds like the DNR wants to, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but you want to restrict opportunity for me, saying I'm going to keep fewer walleyes, but now you also want me to pay more in license fees. What are you talking about?
That's
So what? How are you defending a lot of these positions? Because
as anglers, let's just say on the fishing side of this, as anglers, we want better fishing. We want more fishing, and if you fish a lake that needs stocking, stocking costs money.
yeah, and this is
Right?
and it's funded from
Right. And
fishing
the
license.
costs are going up, for all of us. I mean, inflation has affected all of us, whether it's my property taxes or whether it's, how much, gas today isn't what it was, 6 months ago, but I mean, it's kind of funny how it's dropped. I haven't seen these prices in a long time, but my grocery bill is higher. Everything that I'm wanting to do is costing me more. The agency's experiencing those same increases, right?
Yep.
And the fund is only stable for so long. And so that's kind of what's happened is the DNR raises license fees. Well, the legislature raises license fees at the DNR's request. That pops money into the fund. That gets managed very conservatively because we're not coming in the next year and asking it for it again, right? So it gets managed conservatively, but eventually you're on the negative side. You're spending more out of it than is going in every year, right? And eventually you're going to run into a situation where the fund is at zero and it's time to ask for a fee increase again. That's just generically how it's worked.
When you're coming in, if somebody's coming in, DNR is looking for a fee increase. Are you strategically looking at these then as opportunities to say, sure, we'd be willing to support a fee increase, but we also are looking for these types of things to happen as well. Is there some negotiation back and forth?
There can be.
Okay.
There has been in the past. I can't say what's happened the last one or two times, but definitely in the past there has been that's occurred. They tend to, historically, when the agency is asking for a fee increase, that kind of jumpstarts some of the intuitive, inquisitive nature of legislators wanting to ask questions. And so they're all of a sudden trying to learn on the speed what's going on, right?
Sure.
Which is good.
And I think it happens with anglers too. They start questioning what's happening with their management.
Right. And that all of that is good.
Yeah.
I mean, we need more people asking questions, and learning what's actually happening or what's not happening. So, I can tell you from, MinFish, we'd kind of, a couple of years ago, we dove in and took a look and tried to do a historical look at, what's happened the last 15, 20 years. And, you come out of the Great Recession back in 2008, that time frame, 2010, whatever. And budgets across the state government were crashing, and general fund was getting pulled out. Now license fee dollars. Back then, Fish and Wildlife, we put general tax dollars supported hunting and fishing. Now maybe not as much as it should, but there was general fund support in the operations of Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, and to me, it doesn't seem like a big ask for hunters, anglers, outdoor people to say that we actually want some of these general fund dollars to help us fund what we like to do. Fishing and hunting, fishing just in particular, generates a hell of a lot of money, tax dollars in the state of Minnesota, and unless you're out there busting your ass fighting for it, I don't think they're going to say like, hey, fishermen, you guys should get some of this money back.
The the boater and angler in Minnesota this year will spend $6.6 billion.
$6.6 billion, Mikey. That's
a lot
more
of
that's
money
in your checkbook.
That's a lot.
That will generate hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue to the state. Right now, none of that.
Zero
Is going into fisheries management.
So what should we do about that? I mean, is this something you should write to your legislator about? Should you how do you tackle an issue like that? I mean,
It's a slow education. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have, if every angler of the $1.2 million license fee, license buyers in Minnesota,
Sure.
if every one of them called their legislator and said, make sure you're taking care of DNR's fisheries budget, that would have a profound impact. But right now, that's not happening.
it's just not happening. But this kind of wraps into that same.
Which is why
idea of
MinFish,
fishing.
once we get to, is
Well, let's talk about that
created.
bonding money that came up. Yeah. So this is another source of funding, but ties into us meaning anglers getting some of what they've been paying for.
Sure. And so let's back up. MinFish was created by a group of avid anglers, and I'm sure you've talked about this, but who saw a void in the public arena, the legislature around DNR, of anglers, average anglers, having a voice, having an ability to affect what was going on. There was just a void there. I mean, you had, on the hunting side, you have the ducks have a group, the pheasants have a group, the grouse and woodcock have a group, deer have a group. Everyone's got a group on the hunting side. There really isn't one on the trout has a group. Muskie has a small group.
Yeah, there's some walleye clubs around too, walleye alliance.
Yeah, but
Walleyes
they're
are
not at the
yeah.
legislature.
Sure.
They're doing localized work,
Yep.
right? But they're not engaged on overall state policy of fishing. I mean, Trout Unlimited is they do a lot of conservation work in the trout streams. But
Sure,
that's
yeah, a lot of habitat work.
That's 2% of our angling community. Important, doing great
Absolutely,
stuff,
yeah.
doing great stuff. But so they're taking care of the trout side, right? Muskie guys have been working on their stuff for a long time, did great work, have put muskies on a worldwide map, Minnesota. I mean, we're
A once famous muskie fishery.
well, I should say.
Okay, yeah, we'll move on past that.
I agree. I still relatively recently on, and can come back.
Yeah, it could. We've got potential. We're actually doing good things, but we had to bust our ass, just like you're talking about here. We had
Right.
to bust our ass to get that.
You had to bring voices in and lean into the problem, and make your voices heard with those who make the decisions, and that's what MinFish was created to go do. So MinFish did an analysis, looked back, and said, what could we affect quickly that would make a difference for anglers? And the two things that we looked at real quick and out of that 20-year look was the legislature stepped away from public water accesses. So your registration fee on your boat, that basically covers the summer's use of pulling the docks out in the fall, putting them back in the spring, doing some maintenance on those facilities, and maybe rehab a handful, one hand of,
Really?
of what, 3,500 public water accesses in the state?
Yeah.
Okay. Shelf life on a public water access is 20 years. Well, you step away from 20 years and you think 5 getting fixed a year is going to,
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden you're behind,
yeah,
and
you can't.
that's what the anglers have been experiencing, you know, and we're pulling bigger boats than we used to, right?
Yep.
And so the accesses that were designed in the 90s for your 16-foot Lund are now having to absorb an 18 or 20-foot Lund Tai versus,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. It's different.
Things have changed, sizes have changed, horsepower, and it's
Parking.
all of it has a big impact on that public water access. So, but the state, for no apparent reason, it just fell away. It just, the legislature stopped funding it one year, and nobody raised their hand and said, BS, that's not good.
Isn't it amazing? It is amazing to me that you just have to be paying attention to this stuff all the time, where the stuff slips through the cracks and nobody knows, and then you find out, and everybody's fired up, but it just
But once it falls away, the legislature has more people asking for money than they have money to give.
sure.
And if something doesn't get funded and nobody notices, apparently it wasn't
Yeah,
that
that's a win for them, right?
Apparently it wasn't that important. We'll move on and give it to somebody who's asking. And that's kind of the motto we've kind of taken up at MinFish is if nobody's asking, the legislature's not giving. So we have to figure out what's important and what is needed and have to start asking. So we went in and said, public water accesses. You've got to reinvest in public water accesses. You've got to get rid of this backlog of untaken care of public water accesses. We looked at hatcheries, the other area in the bonding world, facilities, right? The two biggest facilities in the fishing world is public water accesses and hatcheries. And we saw the same phenomenon. The legislature stepped away from funding hatcheries. And we went and looked at the hatcheries and saw how the condition they are, how old they are.
Yeah, tell us about the St. Paul hatchery, its condition and age.
St. Paul hatchery is the original state hatchery. Not that the building they're in isn't the original, but when the state started stocking fish 125 some odd years ago, that was started at the St. Paul area, and it grew into this building. This building, over time it changed, but this building hadn't received any substantial upgrades since 1989. Now that's the building, not the hatchery. The hatchery sits in the basement of this building.
Okay.
And you walk in and you go, what the heck? What
the hell's going on here?
You know, I remember my old junior high going down, I mean, you would walk by the boiler room and you'd kind of walk by down in the basement of the. I went to an old school, right?
Sure.
I mean, I'm an old man now, and so I was in an old building then. And this kind of reminded me of that. You walk by and you hear these noises, and you look in there, and there's water running off the ceiling. The pipes are all leaking. There's water all over the floor. And you're looking at these runways, these metal runways, where after the fish are hatched, they put them in these runways to grow a little bit longer. Well, they're sitting on these rusted posts that if any one of them rusted out and collapsed, you'd lose a whole year of stocking. I mean, it's bad. It's just bad all around. And we couldn't get any attention. We pointing it out to legislators. We were orchestrating tours and trying to get a legislator, tell them about this facility, and they go, oh, that's horrible. We should come see it. Well, okay, now we got to get them to go see it. And that.
Yeah, I know you've spent a lot of time at St. Paul
Trying to get legislators to go in and see it. And we finally got a couple here, and they would go back and tell the story. And now after a couple of years, it's slowly getting out there. Well, this year now the DNR has told the governor, and the governor had been down and he had seen it and how bad it was. Well, it still took 2 more years. And now the governor put it in his budget that, it's time to rebuild and modernize the St. Paul Metropolitan Hatchery. And that hatchery serves the entire metropolitan area. and greater metropolitan area. It's also one of the primary muskie rearing areas. So it's doing a lot of different work. It's servicing a lot of lakes throughout Minnesota. But I would say those fish aren't just limited to the metro area. A lot of times those are coming back up here. Eggs will come from up north and they'll go down there and get hatched and then sent back up. So it's an important facility.
Yeah.
But what we found out is that we were basically dealing with 1950s technology, 1960s technology, and so much has changed in the fisheries management world that we just felt, let's just not fix these. Let's build state-of-the-art, modernize these facilities. Let's get them the materials. Let's get them the facilities. Let's get them the equipment so that they can do revolutionary things with fisheries management because it's changed. The challenges that a fisheries manager is facing, very different today than they was back 30, 40 years ago. They're dealing with diseases. They're dealing with invasive species. They're dealing with water quality issues that they didn't deal with before.
Yeah. I mean, pressure, you name the number of variables that add up. And as we were, we looked at today, we had a meeting before this and seeing some of the trends in Minnesota's fish stocks, game fish stocks, the long-term trend is a decline, it appears, currently. And one of the inputs is stocking. I get it. I get that natural reproduction can take care of a lot of things, but Minnesota is the state of walleye. It has way more walleye fisheries are stocked fisheries than our native producing walleye fish. So we need, if you've got some of these lakes that are scattered throughout the state, unless it's one of the big ones, it more than likely has some stocking involved in it. And so if you care about walleyes, you should be cared about these hatcheries.
Well, and even some of the big ones have required
leach
an investment of stocking back into it. I mean, I'm trying to remember what year we stocked Red Lake.
Yeah, that was
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, do you remember when that was? Yeah, it would have been
at least 15
90s.
Years ago, or 20 years ago,
It's been all of that.
Yeah, because they were gone, and
I think
crappies.
Because the crappie boom would have been in the 90s.
90s. It was mid 90s.
Yeah. So when we were stocking during the crappie boom,
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So that was the late 90s.
Yep.
Where that was going on.
Leach got a big stocking. I mean,
Leach had a stocking event when I was commissioner. We had to step in.
That's when you're dealing with the bird issue was big. So
We
that
were
would have been
dealing
early
with the cormorants
2000s,
issue, but then I think there were other. I don't remember
lot of
all the
variables,
details,
but
right?
yes,
But cormorants were a major issue back then. But yeah, we had to step in and supplement supplemental stocking of leach, and then you were able to step away for a long time.
Yep.
The lake was able to recover, took care of itself for a long period of time, but just this last year,
Give it a little bump.
the DNR stepped in last spring and gave it a 7 million fry went in, or 7.5 million fry went in. I know they've done some, I don't know if they could call it supplemental stocking over on Vermilion, but because that's a take lake where they take eggs out,
Sure.
but then they put eggs back in.
Yeah, you were
But they
diving
were-
into that, Mike. What was the? Yeah, I thought you had all the fancy statistics about Vermilion. What was going on?
Oh, I did. I talked to the man. Gosh, I didn't prepare. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but it was. Yeah, they take out a ton of fish. That's like one of the biggest places they take eggs from, and they have to put X amount, a percentage back.
So was it more than just that, like 10%, whatever? Say it's 10% if you take. Was it in addition to that, or?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
I'd have
whatever
to,
they took, they would put 10% back.
Whatever the hell
But
they're
the
doing up
issue
there is
was-
good, because Lake Vermilion is pretty.
Yeah.
But what they
amazing
did
walleye
is
fishing.
one of the things that I know that they changed is they were taking egg fry over to the west side. So they were hatching them out of the east.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Sure.
And
yeah.
so the lake got into a period of time where the size distribution kind of went a little wonky, and you could hardly catch a walleye on the west end. You were catching
Right.
everything on the east side.
Yep.
So then they brought fish over and stocked them over on the west side, and
Yeah, and wasn't growth better on the west
Yeah.
for the young of the year fish, and then slower on the east?
That was the one thing I was told that the fish grow quicker on the west side. It's more fertile, environment and
Especially at the early life stages.
yes. So the fish, the growth, I'm just going to use a random number, but like a 2-year-old fish on the east side would be 5 inches, and a 2-year-old fish on the west side would be 7. I mean, it was a pretty substantial difference. And then I think there was better natural reproduction on the east side over the west side too, was the other thing.
Right.
So,
Yep.
It's a fun lake.
Yeah, it's so dynamic. It's so cool. Of course, we're in love with Shield Water, and Lake Vermilion is that. I mean, it's so.
But it's so, from the east to the west,
Central Basin, it's so dynamic.
And I fish the Central Basin mostly just because
It's a good place.
don't
to
have a boat motor to run that far.
Was it-
I don't want to take the time.
Well, you don't have to run. I mean, if you want to explore, that's what's cool about the
I
lake.
know
you
it
can
is.
explore, and you can, wherever you're at, you can be able to fish. And
Well,
it's-
I've been trying to get better.
Yeah.
And if you're going from the east to the west and the center, it's so different.
It is.
That you can't ever really master anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It is. Yeah, fishing Big Bay is way different than fishing Head of Lakes. Yeah,
Right.
totally different.
Yeah, they're
deal,
all
too.
separate.
Yes.
Each bay is its own
Yep.
separate lake.
It is.
Very
So-
different than the other ones.
The last 2 seasons, hands down, my number one producing walleye bait has been Rapala's PXR Maverick. From opener to ice up, this thing flat out catches. Seriously, give the Rapala Maverick a rip. Let's talk about Mark. So we get into these conversations more philosophically. Let's just say after we've had a couple beverages about, so often to me it's like you've got these expectations for what you want, how you want fisheries managed, and then there's what you dream or you want it to be, but then there's realities that are associated with it. And you've obviously been motivated, spent a career in this. When you look at fisheries management in the future, what are some of the things that you're looking at, paying attention to, and things that others should really be focused on?
That's a big
Big question, yeah.
So I'm going to back up because I was making a point and we sidetracked, and it's relevant.
Hatcheries, yeah. Okay.
It's relevant to what you're asking. As anglers, our perspective is from the dock I fish off of. I'm not even talking about the boat I fish out of. It's really the dock I fish off of, right? I mean, it's the lake I'm on and what I'm experiencing, and that I transpose onto the DNR as if that's the rest of the state. Mm-hmm. And when you look at, as you know, how dynamic these lakes are, how different they all are, the DNR is managing a statewide system. We think of them as managing individually the lake when they're really managing this massive system, and they're basically managing it as if it's one.
Okay, so expand on that.
Well,
'cause we do have individual lake management.
No,
plans.
yeah, I'm talking at
Okay,
I'm
this-
talking
you're
about
talking high
a
level.
100,000-foot level here. As anglers, we're at it from my dock.
Sure.
They're at it from regionally. They're separating. Yes, they're managing vermilion separately than they're managing leech, then they're managing Winnie, then they're managing red, then they're managing Lake of the Woods. All of those lakes are getting individual lake management. And I would argue the next tier quality lakes below that are getting that kind of attention also. But now we're starting to step down into your smaller lakes.
Under 1,000 acres.
I suppose,
500 less even, yeah.
regionally it's going to change.
Sure, yeah.
But let's go down to I live in the metro area, so I mean,
Mike's from the cities too.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, so you're talking about Forest Lake, White Bear, Big Marine,
Forest Lake.
Forest Lake. Okay. How much attention are they getting? They're not getting the attention that the big lakes are getting.
Right.
So what's ultimately happened over the last 20 years as resources have become constrained to fisheries management. The leadership inside the DNR Fisheries said, we're going to hold the big lakes harmless. And I'm not suggesting that was the wrong choice. Okay, that those are special.
Yeah.
I mean, those are, in this nation, in the lower 48, they're special.
Yeah.
No state has what we've got.
Yeah, our big lakes are really impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as anglers, it's hard to remind ourselves how unique and special to have that variety at our disposal to go fish. So I don't fault the agency for saying we're going to hold them harmless and we're going to maintain our level of effort to maintain those fisheries. That was the right choice to
Yeah,
make.
that seems like a good prioritization of resources.
They prioritize them, and that's right. But as their resources have been constrained, it has come at the cost of the smaller lakes. And so those lakes are not getting the attention or the resources that they need to be maintained or improve.
So how do you fix that?
Well, we eventually, going back, we've got to get the agency the resources so that they can, if we want them managed that way. But my point being is, I'm sitting on my dock on my lake. My perspective is, I used to catch walleyes off my dock here. I can't anymore. The crappies used to pile in here in May, and now they're not. Fix that.
Fix it. Yep.
Right? But that's on my lake. That's not necessarily what's happening on that lake over there or that lake over there, right? And so that's where we, as anglers, would love to have them have the resource to manage our lakes individually, and they just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a difficult ask, and I don't know how you really overcome that. And, the other thing that we're facing a lot of things. So we're facing the funding side of things. It's great. Your work with MinFish getting this funding to improve hatcheries and accesses. I mean, those are these hatcheries will definitely provide value to Minnesota anglers in terms of fish being put in their lakes. Larger sizes of fish, you're going to see better efficiency with their stocking. It sure seems.
When those facilities, when they all come online, I mean, we haven't gotten the resources to fix all the hatcheries, right? We've gotten Waterville fixed, and that's going to come online here probably in 2 years. We're starting to get the resources, or hopefully get the resources, to start doing the Metropolitan Hatchery. We've got other plans for the other hatcheries and satellite facilities that go along with them. That's just a piece. I mean, we've got major challenges coming into this. So when you start talking about invasives, right, and the impacts of whether it's spiny water fleas or zebra mussels, and then you get into the aquatic invasive plants that are going on, the milfoil and the story stormwort, and the impacts. All of that is going to challenge our fisheries. And that's why it's so important, and so why so much energy is spent trying to keep people to not move water, right?
Sure.
Because as these lakes let's just take a look at Mille Lacs. I mean, that used to produce incredibly, and it gets clear as for a variety of reasons, Mille Lacs is becoming a clear water lake. All right, and some of it's by accident, some of it's intentional.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. So intentional being like we're not just letting our sewage from the campers flow into Mille Lacs Lake. I mean,
that was an intentional act. The unintended consequence of it was it's going to make it harder on walleyes.
Yeah, it's less productive.
It's affected its productivity, right? Making it harder to catch fish, catch walleyes the way we used to catch them in Mille Lacs. You got to fish them different, right? Yeah, and that's happening on leech now. And any lake that gets zebra mussels, they're going to go through this transition, but it's also making the lake less fertile. Yeah, that's going to affect productivity.
Yeah, and I think think most people, when the AIS thing came on, it was like, oh, everything's gonna, it's the end of the world, and we've gotten through it. Like Mille Lacs is definitely over the hump, and there's still a robust walleye population in there. It wasn't necessarily doom and gloom, but to your point, like these things, they have these swings with zebra mussel populations. You might have all kinds of unintended consequences.
Right.
But there's winners and losers in those systems too, where smallmouth bass seem to really do well. Walleyes might struggle a little bit, but we still have good walleye fishing on both. One of the things that I've kind of, I'd be curious your take on this. This is totally sidetracked, but when I look at aquatic plant management and AIS, I get starry stonewort for sure. Curly leaf pondweed would be an example of a plant that is an invasive plant that, this thing's been here since the 1800s, I would say. And in many places, it's the only plant that's in the lake. And Eurasian water milfoil, for that matter, removal of this is coming at the cost of many of the native plant species. It's habitat, it's cover, and in many of these places, that's what we need. So we seem to say it's okay to take habitat from the lake because it's invasive. And I think a lot of anglers look at that and say, hey man, what the hell? This is habitat that these fish need, because without it, they don't have anything.
So MinFish has started to lean in on that topic. And
I'm not advocating for AIS aquatic plant, but I'm saying we need to think about it.
No. I'm going back to the fights that were going on inside the legislature back in the 90s. I just, because that's my reference point.
Sure, yeah.
And you had landowners, you had boaters who curly leaf pondweed would choke the lake out where they couldn't be out water skiing, they couldn't be out enjoying the lake because their lake. So these lake associations all banded together and came to the legislature, and the legislature responded and said they wrote the laws for permitting, and the DNR had to manage it. And so lake associations are going in and doing management on that habitat, on those weeds, without really taking fish into consideration.
Yeah.
Those were conscious decisions that the legislature made to benefit landowners and lake users, not with the thought about fish and fish habitat.
And that's a multi-use resource. I mean, that's what.
And so that's where MinFish, the time we've spent now in it, we haven't gotten into it fully, but we're leaning in, we're learning right now. And I mean, we're eventually going to be asking for a reevaluation of the program. We're not suggesting that it go away, but we're suggesting that as those permits are evaluated and reevaluated, that fish habitat and fish health be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and
we don't feel they are right now.
Sure, and I also wonder, and I'm not a aquatic plant biologist, or I don't necessarily understand it, but there's almost got to be a time when certain invasives become naturalized, meaning, let's go back to this curly leaf pondweed. I mean, this has been on the landscape for so long. It's the ringneck pheasant, I mean, it's been here for so long. It provides critical habitat that maybe we just have to accept that it's here. It's providing. We've modified the landscape. I mean, in many places, we're not managing a wild native system without human influence. We're managing multi-use resource with lots of different inputs, heavily modified by human usage.
Yep.
So I think it's important for people to understand or think about, talk about, try to figure out what the best approach is. That, I get it. Like if it's milfoil coated to the top, you can't use it for pontoon. I get that, but I also get that if you decide to nuke all the milfoil and the cabbage and everything else, we're out of luck too.
Right. And that's the point. It's let's reset. We need a reset on that management practice and make sure that we have an objective. The example that we can use is Minnetonka, I suppose. I mean, they've been doing this. They've been applying chemicals for years within the aquatic invasive program, because there's two separate programs: aquatic invasive plant management program permit, managed by Eco Waters inside the DNR, and then there's aquatic plant management. You get a permit that's managed by Fisheries. Two separate permits, two separate problems, same lake. So okay. Aquatic plant management permits pulled by Fisheries is largely lakeshore owners pulling for right in front of my cabin or home.
Okay.
Invasive aquatic plant management is the basin. It's the curly leaf pondweed, it's the Eurasian milfoil, and going in and nuking the big area. So there's two separate programs, two separate permits, managed differently, but the same lake doing different things. But techniques are the same. Chemicals, mechanical, whatever. All we're basically saying is that we need a reset, a reevaluation to get the objective. What's the objective? What's the outcome? Are we just going through the motions of doing what we did 30 years ago? We were hoping for solutions 30 years ago. They haven't come.
Yep.
Are we any closer today to solutions, or are we just, to your point, maybe we should just start accepting the fact that it's habitat and it has a place on that, in that ecosystem now that, we don't want, but we don't have a better solution for it.
Right.
Those are questions that we've got to start asking.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm right about
Nope,
that. I'm just,
nope,
from
neither am I.
a common sense point of view that fish habitat is good, and we do. It's wild that you couldn't fell a dying tree purposefully into the lake that would provide fish habitat for shoreline, but you could take it out if it fell in there, right? You know what I mean? Like, we can take habitat from the lake, but
Right.
we can't put it. I'm not saying we should be putting it, but it's a
going
messed
back
up
to my
concept.
point, invasive aquatic plant management, you draw the permit, you go in and you nuke that area.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a restoration plan.
Oh, really?
To
Okay.
there's supposed to be a restoration plan for the restoration of native plants. That restoration plan is, well, the native seeds are there, and if you take out the plants, they'll grow. Oh, okay, they haven't recovered. They haven't. It's still curly leaf pondweed, as you said. It was 40, 60 years ago. It was curly leaf pondweed, and it's still curly leaf pondweed today, even though those natural weeds that were there, those seeds are there, but they're not able. They just can't, for a variety of reasons. Maybe it may not be curly leaf pondweed, may not be the issue. It might be different water quality issues or carp or whatever. Okay.
It's complicated.
But we haven't done anything to fix that. We just keep doing the same old of taking the weeds out. And I think that's the other part of this is, how are we going to move into the next generation of fixing these bodies? And I know that's a long process. People have been working on things for years, but okay, maybe we need to do more.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to accelerate some of this stuff.
And like most lake associations, then people that don't fish or don't care about weeds are weeds, right? So you can even the weed removal stuff, whether it's good or bad. I know in Forest Lake they removed weeds well into August that were all native plants because they were weeds, and they had a contract to remove weeds from the lake. And it started out as crispus in the spring when it grew up. Crispus was done by the 4th of July. So any weeds that came up after the 4th of July were native plants, but they still got removed because to the lake associations and the people that lived on the lake, they were weeds, and we have this machine that we remove them, so we're going to keep removing them because that's what we do. That's what we have to get past. It's like, okay, the curly leaf pondweed's gone, right? The native weeds grew back. Why not just leave them? But it's a effing weed, so we got to get it out of there because we don't want it hanging on our dock.
Yeah, they'll spend a gazillion dollars manicuring their lawn. That's pretty.
Yep.
They don't see the weeds as valuable and important.
Yeah.
Right.
And that lawn is fertilizing those weeds just the same as their grass, right? So yeah. We're getting long here, but I want to. We'll see how this goes because I want to just address this depending on where we go. So we had a board meeting today with MinFish, and one of the topics that came up that we discussed was MinFish's board position on the 4-fish walleye limit in the state of Minnesota. And so this is a complicated topic, and I know that a lot of anglers or clubs might look to MinFish as saying, okay, let's look at this direction that this group would go. And so the board offered up their opinions on this and came out with a neutral vote, a unanimous neutral vote on that. And so if I was sitting back looking at MinFish as an organization, and I'm a walleye guy who thinks this 4-fish walleye limit is great. MinFish is the voice of anglers in Minnesota. And here we've got a chance with our state fish to do something good to conserve the resource. They decided to be neutral. And it's a lot more complicated than that. And you've got a good take on it. So let's wrap on this for a little bit, Mark.
Yeah. I try to point out to people that the MinFish board is a cross-section of our angling community. We've got people who are very analytical. I mean, these are business people. It's inputs in, inputs out, right? Give me the facts, give me the data. They want to dive in. And they looked at it and said, boy, we don't see the data that you're telling us playing out. That you're telling us you got to go to 4, but we're not seeing it in. The things you're telling us don't add up, and we don't see it as being a harvest issue, right? The harvest isn't up. The lakes are just as healthy as they were. Yeah, we hear what you're saying, that the future is not good, that the changes that are going on inside our lakes aren't as... The changes that are happening, whether it's because of invasive species or zebra mussels or because of climate change or whatever, that walleyes are going to have a harder time in the future. We hear you and understand what you're saying, but that's not what we're seeing today. I mean, that's generally what that we're kind of at. Don't buy the fact that a 2-fish reduction is going to change anything, because we know most anglers don't go out and catch 4 fish. They just don't. So you're not saving any fish by going to a 2. That's where the analytical guys are. Okay. Then you got a group who are, they're just passionate fishermen. They're very pragmatic about life and pragmatic about fishing. DNR has proven that altered limits, adjusted limits on the big lakes, on naturally reproducing lakes, has worked. And they have success behind that. And so, and those tend to be the lakes that most of the board fishes. They're fishing lakes that already have a 4-fish limit, and they've come to the conclusion personally that I live with 4, it ain't a problem. It works. We also the board also tend to be the kind who go to Canada once, twice, or many times a year, and they're experiencing the very restrictive on the Canadian side, reduced access. It's more about the experience. Am I going out and having a good day outing fishing? It's not so much about the heart. It's not about the catch, and 4 is enough. So they're fine with it. So we've got this. We spent more time than we probably should have. Maybe that was part of our problem, because the board has been mashing on this thing and I've been telling people we're not going to make a decision until we get down the road on this. We're not going to prematurely step into this fight until the DNR tells us we've got to, and that's where we're at right now. But we've been mashing on this, asking questions, and it's been a great education for a lot of board members. But it's conflicted them even more and more because I don't think they felt confident that the agency defended the 4 and the 4 is going to make a difference to improve fishing. It feels symbolic. But as anglers, who are passionate about fishing and want fishing to be better, how could 4 be a bad thing? How can it not improve? It's not going to improve fishing, but how could it not be a good thing down the road for fishing?
Sure. Yeah.
So the board struggled with that. Some definitely hard yeses, bunch of hard no's. How do we coalesce around this? And I think the recognition is 4 isn't going to change the world. It's not going to change the landscape. It's not going to affect the average angler much because that average angler is not catching 4 anyway. So there's a concern about intellectual integrity here on that.
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, intellectual integrity. This is, there are board members who don't feel that the agency knows it's not going to make a difference, but they're proposing it anyway. And our concern is that the professional manager, we want their integrity to stand put. One of the things that MinFish has stood by is we don't want elected officials who don't have background in natural resources management making management decisions. We want our professionals who are in the trenches every day to have the resources and the tools to evaluate and make a conscious decision on our behalf. We don't feel that this is the reg that's going to get us there. That this is the reg that's going to move the needle, make a difference.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you're spot on. And so maybe I'll try to summarize this. So what we're getting at here is that if the agency has these tools in the toolbox, one of them being limits, it's been pretty clear that the agency is saying that you need to go to 2 or 3, probably 2 to even make any difference whatsoever in this. So that's what we've been fed, and now, which they had been opposed. I know a lot of people did a lot of work to try to get the bag limit reduced, and it was kicked down the road. Now we're not going to do it. Now all of a sudden we're gonna do this 4-fish limit, which, okay, we just were told that this isn't going to make a difference. So I can understand how you would have that. At the same time, they've also done some great work, and I know a lot of avid walleye anglers that care about this and want to see this change. So there's a large social, many of the anglers want this change, and so I think that's important to listen to. I'm like, hey, directionally that makes sense. I support what you're saying. Mikey's over here trying to get sunny limits to 5, but you can keep 6 fish. So there's a ton of benefit just from a larger social perspective on what this does to fisheries. Not necessarily measurable, but there's this idea that what I would call cognitive dissonance, where you have 2 ideas that are opposing each other at the same time. So I would look at it also and say a limit is not the right tool for the job. We're looking at drastic means where we have angler efficacy that is changing radically. And so we're not addressing a root cause there whatsoever with this. We're also not necessarily approaching the funding mechanisms to make walleye fishing better. We're just kind of doing something that has social buy-in and is easy. And so for those reasons, you could oppose a 4-fish walleye limit. I think that's where a lot of people are at. I agree with it for this reason, this reason, and this reason. But I also disagree with it for these more complicated next level things. So, I too am, it's very hard for me to say one way or the other because I hold both of those points of view simultaneously.
I have very strong personal feelings, so I'm trying to speak on behalf of the board.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking about myself.
Yeah,
too,
no,
so,
and you should. You're a board member. I don't have a vote, so I'm trying to represent the perspective of the conflict that occurred amongst these 17 board members, trying to wrestle with this. You've got the strong social aspect of this, and inside that social aspect is that conservation ethic that they have, and all the board members have it, and they so desperately want fishing to improve in Minnesota.
Yep.
And then the other side is sitting there saying, but the agency didn't prove it. They didn't jump. We don't believe it's going to make a difference, and so why are we wasting our time?
That's a great question to ask. Yeah, that is a fair question to ask. Why are we wasting time on what could likely be ineffective regulation?
Right. So we get neutrality.
Yeah, and that's
Now, to be fair, that's not going to be all we do. The board is going to come out with a statement behind that saying, we are not going to sit back and rest on this. We're not going to allow the DNR to sit back and rest. If regardless of whether 4 moves forward or not, we're not going to sit back and accept that is and or was the solution. This is going to require, to improve fishing in Minnesota, particularly for walleyes, a much more integrated and aggressive effort that the legislature is going to have to step into and fund, whether it's habitat work, whether it's stocking, whether it's research. There's a whole list of things that need to be evaluated, reevaluated, and invested in to improve fishing.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And I think this is just a great conversation, a really great springboard. And I as much as anything, I really value the work that a lot of stakeholders have done to try to be proactive in addressing this issue and getting the DNR to say, okay, yeah, we should do something. Again, I come back to some of these ideas that maybe this is the easy way out, but maybe it's just going to be a win-win where this opens up people's eyes to say, okay, we're dealing with bigger, more complex issues. If the 4-fish thing passes, great, but don't let it sit there. That's not the end game. I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to it being a 4-fish walleye limit if there is strategy and there's an end game that is, we know that this is going to make things better for us, or we have a plan, or we're talking and we have a vision of how we want to improve the walleye fishery in the state of Minnesota.
And so that was the dichotomy that the board struggled with. And so yes, we want 4 people heard and listened to the people who said we need more. They agreed with that, and so they compromised to neutrality.
Yeah, and I think that's a good position. I mean, there's
it's hard.
I really do. I mean, I think that's the best position that MinFish could take in this, and there's other organizations that are pushing this forward. It's kind of their fight. We're there to listen to,
it's been interesting watching the board on this throughout this basically a year. We've been going back and forth, and we didn't spend a lot of time in the early years, and it's kind of come up and down. But watching the board move from I'm a yes, I'm a no, I'm for, I'm against 4, it was fun watching that.
Yeah.
But I also saw that stress that as if you don't know anything, it was easy to sit back and say yep or no.
Yep.
But as they started diving into it, how those positions changed back and forth and flip-flopped over this last year. People who I thought were a hard no a year ago became yeses, and some yeses became, what the hell are we talking about here?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So, and I think what the discussion just then becomes is we're not actually talking about the limit. We're talking about management issues.
And that's where we went.
Yes,
we
exactly.
started talking about what actually needs to happen, and that's what was so enlightening and fun to see in that room today.
Yes, and definitely it did not seem like MinFish is definitely in support, or at least what I'm not speaking for the board, but the sentiment from what I gathered was that yes, absolutely, we're in favor of doing what's right and best for the resource and shifting the angling mindset to be, all right, this is what anglers want. This is what just makes sense from a 10,000 foot view, but here, let's chip away at the lower stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I literally had a scorecard of board members, and I was doing yes, no, okay, and I did it 3 different times. I did it once at the beginning of the meeting when we first kind of did this. People kind of walked through their perspectives, and I'm like, okay, this is where things are going to lay out. And by the end of the meeting, it was like, oh wait, and everyone was tugging and pulling at their own hearts of what they wanted to have happen. And yeah, it was.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's great. The other, let's wrap this up here. But one other thing that we talked about today that is Dr. Peter Sorensen going to, will he be speaking at the summit?
No.
Okay.
No, he's going to the American Fisheries Society
but
meeting
he's not
tomorrow
coming. He's not
or
coming back.
Thursday.
Okay.
I don't think he's in town for a summit, and so
Okay.
we should talk about the summit real quick. But so MinFish worked with Dr. Peter Sorensen from the University of Minnesota, retired. He we asked him to do some work, and he captured all of the data, fisheries data, creel survey data, fish survey data, lake assessment data.
Yep.
And
From the 1950s.
back to the 50s.
Yeah. I mean, this is cool.
Right.
This is cool.
Yeah. So much data that they had to go to British Columbia, the University of British Columbia, who had a supercomputer available to load all of that data in to mine it and start pulling shit out. And they just said Minnesota's DNR, the data volume that they had is remarkable.
He said it's second to none. Like ocean fisheries don't have this layer of data. So, I mean, that's one thing that and hey, man, we bought a license for a lot of years. We're going to get our money's worth out of it. And this is cool. We've got it. He's doing it. And I hope that when that gets published, people can take a peek at it because it's insightful.
It's very insightful. It's alarming.
Hell yeah, it's alarming.
It's alarming. I think, and I told Dr. Sorensen that he needs to ask us for more help, so that what can he also mine out of that data? What else should we be looking at? What should we be sharing with the DNR into the future, so that we can make some really forward-thinking decisions on what needs to happen? And I think, if we hadn't had Dr. Sorensen on the front half, I'm not sure that 6-4 discussion would have gone the way it did.
I would agree 100%.
Yep.
Yes. So
I think the outcome would have been very different if we had held Peter Sorensen back a day or two and did it differently.
Yep, it would have.
The outcome would have been different.
Yep, I agree. So when this comes out, I'm sure we'll talk about this at the summit. So Mark is organizing MinFish Summit again. We did this last year in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. This year it's going to be in Alexandria, Minnesota. You gave me that. It's the 17th. I can't remember.
Your attention span is.
Yeah.
We're partnering with the Viking Sportsman's Club out of Alexandria.
Cool. Yep.
We're going to we'll be at the Arrowwood Lodge in Alexandria on April 17th.
Boom.
You nailed it.
Nailed it. Sweet. So there's going to be, for MinFish lifetime members, you're going to get the first crack at registration here, and then it'll be
And then we'll open it up to members and the general public for access to. We're limited in space.
Yep.
As we were at Grand Rapids, it'll be 200 to 225 participants.
Yep.
We haven't laid out the agenda completely, but we're going to be on relevant topics. Some of the things we talked about here today. We're not going to relitigate 6-4.
Yep. That'll be a long pass.
But I'm not so sure.
Who knows? It could be.
But I'm not so sure that the things that we're going to talk about in our letter, in our comment letter that we're going to provide around 6-4 about the needs in the future, some of that's definitely going to be into there.
Sure.
So that'll be fair game. But my guess is technology will continue to be an issue.
Yeah.
Going over to that region, it wouldn't surprise me if we got into particularly, I'm kind of necking it way down, but guides, technology, ice fishing, crappies, those there's kind of a coalescence
Yeah,
of
definitely.
hot-bedded topics there.
And crappies definitely should be getting some attention after what I saw
definitely
today.
yep.
Even more so than I thought. So.
I kind of always had that crappies are that resilient fish.
Yes,
that,
absolutely.
That you pound them to death, and 10 years later they're going to be back. But no, it doesn't sound like that's happening.
Yeah, different.
But some of the conversations we've been having on northern pike, I was fascinated by some of the data that came out on that he had.
Yeah.
Some I intuitively got. Some I was like, wow, that's not what I was expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was good. We'll definitely have to hit on some of that stuff. So anyway, and then this is the other great thing about that MinFish Summit is Mark has offered to put his credit card down, so it's going to be an open bar the whole time. Mark's covering the bill, so that's exciting. Thank you, Mark, for
I'll be
that.
there.
That's awesome. Get everybody going. No, I'm just kidding. Mike's actually going to cover the bill.
Yeah. Woof.
No, it is a great time. If you haven't been there, it's just a great, I think it's a real thoughtful discussion. You get to do a lot of networking, the conversations about fisheries that are on top of your mind. This as much as the presentations, just being around other folks and having a chance to talk is as valuable as anything.
Yeah. And so, you're as an angler, you're going to get a chance to hear some things, but you're also going to get a chance to voice your opinion.
Yep.
And share with us so that we can, as MinFish, we need to know where you're at so that we can start, as we try to influence our legislature and influence the DNR on things, we kind of need to know where you're at. And so we also want you to be able to have confidence to come in and voice your opinion, but also hear from others in a respectful way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you very much. I know it's been a long day. You've basically been in a meeting with me since first thing this morning, and it's late in the afternoon and you got a long drive. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching this. If you're listening, we really appreciate it. If you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor, drop a comment. Let us know what you think of some of the topics that we're talking about, how funding works, what's going on with the 4-fish walleye limit, you name it. We greatly appreciate everybody, and we will see you soon.